going to get a little bit started so we can get this going. My name is Elena. I work for Books Inc. In San Francisco Bay Area. We have 10 locations in the area, and we've been around since 1851. We're the West's oldest independent bookseller. We're always excited to host authors, especially Andy. He's a great friend to particularly our Mountain View store. And we're so glad that you could all join us for this special event. It's a tail end to his tour, and we're just so happy that we could offer this to everyone to join. And if you haven't ordered yet, he is going to sign copies at our store this weekend that we will be shipping out. If you haven't already ordered yours, you can do so at the Books Inc. website or through the Eventbrite RSVP link that you registered for this event for. That will be live for the next hour. So if that dies, just go to the website and you can order it on there. This event, as you've noticed, your audio and video as an audience member has been muted. That is to focus on the talent that we have tonight and the conversation that we are about to listen to. We do welcome any conversation or chat that you want to include. So use the Q&A box or the chat box. We will be addressing questions at the end. So if you have anything that you want to ask Andy or Pascal, please be sure to include them in the Q&A box. Any comments or love or excitement or random thoughts that you have, please put them in the chat box, and we will do our best to communicate all of those to them with our time given. If you've ordered a copy of Project Hail Mary, we are going to have them signed this week, and they will ship out hopefully by Tuesday. There is a holiday delay because of Memorial Day. So keep that in mind. You will get an automated email with the tracking information as soon as your package is ready to go. And he will personalize copies. So if you have not already responded to the email I sent out the other day and you want your copy personalized, look at him dancing. We will put a Post-it note in them and he will personalize them for you. Andy Weir, that's why we're here. And that's a rhyme I didn't intend, but here we go. Andy Weir is a New York Times bestselling author, and we're so glad to call him a great friend to Books Inc., specifically to our Mountain View location. I was not witness to this, but heard from many of our staffers that when he stopped by to sign copies of The Martian a while back, our bathroom sink was broken and he fixed it for us. We don't have pictures, and that makes me very sad, but being able to tell people that always gives me great joy. And whenever he stops by, he's just delightful. So if you ever need a plumber or someone to save you in space, he's your guy.
It was broken.
It was broken, and you fixed it. His latest release, Project Hail Mary, has gotten starred reviews from Booklist, Publishers Weekly, Kirkus Reviews, Library Journal, and I have seen nothing but positive feedback online all over the internet, and we're so grateful that we are part of your tour. So thank you for taking the time to do this. In conversation will be Pascal Lee, who is a planetary scientist with the SETI Institute, a nonprofit research organization located in the Silicon Valley, close to the NASA Ames Research Center. They are very good friends and have a delightful rapport. So I am really excited to see where this is going to go. With that, I'm going to hide myself and mute myself. I'll be back for the Q&A portion. So again, do not hesitate to enter any questions that you have while the event is happening, and we'll get as many in as we can given the time that we have. And this will be recorded and uploaded to our YouTube channel shortly. So if you have to miss any of it, you can catch up on it later. So thank you everybody for joining us, and I hope you enjoy this talk.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you. Hey, Andy.
Hey, Pascal. How you doing, man? Good to see
you.
you
Just you
again.
and me now.
Just you and me.
So, when Books Inc. offered for me to have a conversation with you on your new book, like we did for when The Martian came out. Oh, is that your doggy?
That's Coco. Just, I know that's what, when a dog shows up in one of these things, everybody wants to know about the dog. So let's get this out of the way. That's Coco. He's my dog. He's a sort of a Shih Tzu Lhasa Apso mix, according to the shelter we got him from, and he's blind. So he kind of Roombas around.
Okay. How old is he?
He's 10. And one of the commenters just said, I thought Andy was a cat person. I'm an all animals person. You don't got to be one or the other. And I do have 2 cats. They're just not here right now.
Yeah, I should have my dog meet your dog.
Yeah.
My little dog is Apollo. Hey, he looks very sweet, Coco. Good to meet you.
He's a good boy. He likes people. He likes dogs. He's super mellow. He's like the dog equivalent of Valium.
Yep. I'm glad you're taking good care of him. Yeah. So Andy, I was saying, I jumped on the opportunity to do a conversation with you because your publisher was going to send me a free copy of your book. So
Excellent.
here it is.
Excellent.
I
Excellent.
have it.
I'm glad.
Okay, and I just got it, so I'm not done reading it. I'm sort of halfway through it. It's fantastic. It's really great. I love it. And anybody who's interested in science fiction, especially hardcore science fiction, ought to love this. And in case you don't like it, it's a big, thick, heavy book. You can use it as a paperweight or
doorstop. Yeah, it's a lot of, yeah. There's really no end to the uses that.
But let's jump right into it, Andy.
Sure.
First of all, it's a sci-fi book. You wrote The Martian and then Artemis, which took place on the moon. This is interstellar. This is an interstellar adventure.
Yep.
Love it.
Thanks.
When does this take place?
Modern day. It takes place now-ish, or near enough to now that it may as well be now. Yeah. I mean, it's not a huge spoiler. You find all this stuff out in like the first chapter. Basically, an extraterrestrial single-celled organism kind of starts breeding on the surface of our sun. And what it is, it's not intelligent. It's like algae that just like algae lives in the ocean. This life form lives on the surface of stars, gathers up enough energy, and then spores out to go live on other stars. Just evolution in action. And well, the problem is that it's breeding out of control on the sun, and that is making basically the equivalent of an algae bloom on the sun. Yeah. And that will cause, it's getting to the point where the solar output, the total output of the sun is reducing. And if that gets below a certain level, Earth will, like all life on Earth will die, which is bad.
Now you have a name for this algae.
Yeah, it's called astrophage, or that's what the Earth scientists call it, because astro meaning star and phage meaning a thing that eats or consumes.
Yeah, that eats, yeah.
It's a little bit of a misnomer, but it's just such a cool sounding word I had to use it. Astrophage doesn't eat the star. The sun will be fine, but it lives off of the star, and it's absorbing so much of the energy that it's threatening Earth.
Yeah, I think of it as a stellar mildew, but
yeah, it is.
But having said that, what?
I mean, I could go Greek or Latin, so it had to be either astrophage or stellivore.
So by terrestrial standards, of course, this is an extremophile. How extreme does it get for astrophage in your story?
Astrophage can live in pretty much any temperature. Well, it has a critical temperature that works out to be about 94 degrees or so Celsius. And any temperature above that, it takes that heat energy and converts it into mass that as a form of storing energy. So you can put it in as hot as you want, just about. It can get really, really hot and it'll just gather energy faster. But if you get too hot, it can't gather the energy fast enough. Like the mechanism by which it turns the heat into energy has, like, the heat has to work its way, through layers of the cell. And so if you put it like in the core of a star, it would actually die. But it can live comfortably on the surface. So we're talking like, what, 5,000 kelvins? I don't know. You know more about this than I do. What's the surface of the sun?
Yeah, 5,000 Kelvin.
Yeah.
But so of course it doesn't exist that we know of in reality. But what I like about this is, I mean, The Martian was very constrained. When I was reading The Martian, it felt like a report from work. Like the paper to review that you had to review, with all the ammunition of sort of rigor. But here, okay, you're freer here, right? Because this is now more speculative. This is farther out, and it still works. It's very exciting.
Thank you.
So what happens? Can you give us a synopsis without spoilers?
Well, our protagonist, who's his name is Ryland Grace, but he doesn't know that at first. He wakes up in some sort of hospital bed-like thing with complete amnesia, doesn't know his name, doesn't know anything. And he comes to realize fairly quickly that A, he's been in a coma for a long time, and B, he's aboard a spaceship. And as his memories start to come back to him, he remembers all this stuff about Astrophage, and comes to realize that he's basically a last-ditch effort to find a solution to Astrophage, the mission that he's on. Also, the other two crewmates are dead. So he's it. He's all that's left. He's humanity's last hope. Usually I don't write stories that have like such high stakes, but hey, why not?
So it's Jason Bourne meets Mark Watney.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, right, because of the memory thing. Yeah, good point. Yeah. Boy, that Matt Damon, great. He just always keeps coming back into things, doesn't he?
Okay. Well, speaking of Matt Damon, you already have the movie rights sold or something like that, right?
Yes, we sold the movie rights to MGM, which as of yesterday is Amazon. And yeah, and we have Ryan Gosling attached to play the lead, to play Ryland. So that's great. Because among other things, he has the same initials, Ryan Gosling, Ryland Grace. Oh, so maybe he could bring his own cufflinks to set or something. We could, save $10.
Yeah. Incidentally, what's the timeline for that movie? Do we know?
COVID threw everything in Hollywood into utter disarray, so I don't know. We have the lovely and talented Drew Goddard working on the screenplay adaptation right now, so that's where we are. He wrote the screenplay adaptation of The Martian, so obviously he's awesome. And after that, we just have to kind of feed it to the studio, see if they like it, see if they'll fund it. I mean, the studio bought the film rights, so they're taking it seriously. And Mike DeLuca, who's in charge of the films, well, he was in charge of MGM. Now that it's been bought by Amazon, it looks like he's probably going to be in charge of Amazon's theatrical films division. And he really likes the project a lot. So that's a good sign, but you never know with Hollywood. You just never know.
The scenes that you depict in this book are so cinematic. I can, I mean,
you can see them.
You didn't write it like a script, I don't think, at all. But you, at the same time, you could just see that as an awesome movie. Really.
Thank you. I tend to unintentionally be a cinematic style writer. I don't mean to be, and I'm never writing the book with the idea that it'll be a movie. It's just like that's kind of how I see things in my head. So that's kind of how things end up.
Yeah. Now, can we talk about gravity in this movie?
I suppose so.
I mean, I want to avoid the spoilers. So,
well, I mean, he's aboard a spaceship, so.
Yeah. Okay. And it has gravity.
Well, I mean, it has two different kinds of artificial gravity, I suppose. Right. Its engines are powerful enough that it can accelerate at like a constant acceleration of 1.5 Gs. So he can feel when it's accelerating. To him, it just feels like gravity all the time.
Yep.
In fact, I think it was Einstein who said a constant, acceleration on a ship is genuinely indistinguishable from gravity on a planet. However, I think Ryland does. Yeah, well, Ryland goes like, it may be genuinely indistinguishable, but Earth's gravity is not 1.5 Gs.
Yeah, exactly.
So I must be somewhere else, and then the other form of gravity it has is when it's not accelerating, it can separate into two halves connected by cables and then spin around to provide centripetal force gravity.
Yeah. Okay, great. So let's talk about your main character a bit here, because some people who've read The Martian or seen the movie will see that in some sense you have the single character, the central single character who's sort of on a survival mission of some sort. That is in common, but at the same time, this is really different. Who did you have in mind when you wrote this character? I mean, is that somebody that you know, for example?
No, and in fact, okay, so I consider my biggest weakness as a writer to be characters and character depth. I mean, people certainly liked Mark Watney, but he doesn't have any depth. Like at the end of the book, all you know about him is he's smart, he's pretty funny, and he didn't want to die. that's not really a character, right? That's just sort of a.
It worked.
It worked because it was an intensely plot-driven novel, but no one would accuse The Martian of being literature. Also, at the end of the book, he's exactly the same as the beginning. He doesn't change in any way. If you were to ask him, hey, what did you learn from your time on Mars? How did you change as a person? He'd be like, nothing. You know,
yeah, but he's a professional astronaut with
right, right.
with the proverbial right stuff.
And also, I'm trying to get better as an author always, and I do consider characters and character depth and arcs and stuff to be my weakest point. So for Artemis, my second book, I said, oh, and Mark was based on my own personality, just only the parts of my personality that I liked and none of my many, many flaws. And the aspects of me that I do like, he had magnified. Like, I'm kind of smart, he's really smart. I'm kind of funny, he's really funny. And he doesn't have like any of my flaws, like my fear of flying or various neuroses. So then for my second book, I wrote Jazz. Jazz Bashar is the main character in Artemis. And for her, I said, okay, I'm going to have more depth and complexity. There goes my dog. And for her, since she's 26 years old, I gave her all the flaws that I had when I was her age. So, you know, she's allegedly she's very smart, but she still makes really bad life decisions. That was kind of my situation when I was 26. It's like, everyone's like, man, you're so smart. Why do you do such stupid things? And so I gave her those flaws, and what I learned from that, and she had more depth and complexity, and she had an arc. Like at the end of the book, she's different than she was at the beginning of the book. But what I found was I drove a lot of people away because she was so acerbic and so much the cause of her own problems in the first place. People had a tough time rooting for her. So I'm like, okay, turns out people like the idealized version of me more than the, you know, the realistic version of me. And so I'm like, all right. So I swear I am answering your question. It's just taking me a while to get there. So you asked me how I put together the character of Ryland.
Yeah.
Again, still trying to grow as a writer. And I decided I can't just rely on my own personality for protagonists forever. So this time I said, like, Ryland is not going to be based on my own personality. He's going to be made out of whole cloth. I'm not going to base him on me or what I would necessarily do. I'm going to make his personality, figure out what his drives and motivations are, and they can be different than mine. And that's what I did. So he's not really any part of me. I mean, he has some snark. It's impossible to keep yourself completely out of the main character. And the humor is there because that's just my writing style. And hi, Coco. And but I needed to I really wanted to make a totally different character. Now, there's a lot more that we learn about his character and his backstory as the book goes on. Now, you only just started reading it, so I don't want to spoil it for you any more than I want to spoil it for the viewers today. But yeah, I feel like I really did make him deep, complicated, and nuanced, and he has a growth arc.
He really grows on you.
And, thank you. Coco needs to be in my lap.
He has a growth of his own, but he really grows on you. And what I like is
sorry, 1 second, Pascal, 1 second. The dog is going to bark until he gets on my lap. 1 second.
Okay, that's a good problem to have. Oh, I'm going to interview Coco now. He's such a sweet dog.
Coco rules the house with an iron paw. Anyway, go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, I like really the way how you treat the character in the sense of how he discovers or remembers who he is. You have the book is structured with a series. Well, it includes a series of flashbacks, which essentially represent him remembering who he was and how he got there in the first place. And it's sort of progressive and peppered throughout the book. And it's a very effective way of doing it. But at the same time, it's really interesting because what comes back to him at the right time.
Right.
In a way that sort of
that's a shameless literary shortcut that I took. You know, basically, in order for the story, there's a lot of stuff that happens on Earth that's important and relevant to the story, and it all happened before the ship launched. And if I were to tell the story linearly with no flashbacks, it would be really weird and disjointed and unpleasant because you'd get whiplash. First off, the flashbacks, the relevant things that happened on Earth happen over the course of like 5 years.
Right.
And so the first third of the book would just be these scenes that, like, it's like you have this scene and then the next page it's 2 years later, and then now we're looking at completely other characters. It would be just like you'd get whiplash, and then the ship would launch and you'd never see any of those characters again.
Yeah.
Until, you know,
Exactly.
so
Not only that, but you appreciate the importance of the flashback because he is trying to remember his past, and so every one of these flashbacks is like a gift to him. It's, you know,
it's like, okay, wait, yeah. And that it also, the extremely tropish and lazy amnesia plotline that I put in there means that I can just have him, like, I'm like, now I need to exposition this thing. So he's going to suddenly remember, you know, because he looks at the thing and then finally it sparks a memory, and then he remembers this thing that happened where he was learning about the thing he's trying to remember. And so it works.
It works.
Thanks.
It works very well. Okay. Now, did you reveal what he does for a living?
I don't mind. He comes to remember that he is a junior high school science teacher.
I love this. That's awesome.
Leads you, the reader, to go, why did they send a junior high school science teacher? I mean, they're very, very valuable members of society, but perhaps there are people more qualified to go on a space mission to save Earth. How did this guy end up there? And that's a question you're expected to ask yourself, and one that is answered, I promise.
I have a great admiration for teachers, especially science teachers, and I can see how many would belong on a mission like this, actually, as two ambassadors of knowledge on Earth. Okay. So that's an interesting twist, because that's a contrast with Mark Watney, right, who was the consummate astronaut, whereas this guy is a lot more, you know,
everyman,
less high-strung, more laid back, but as smart, really, and as efficient at the end.
Well, thank you. But yeah, it's like Mark.
Now, this wasn't a compliment for you; it's your character I was talking about.
Well, yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanking you for admiring the book. Yeah. Well, Mark Watney, I could always say, is like, I could explain away his like, I often get, you know, emails saying, why didn't Mark freak out in a situation? Why didn't he go into a deep depression? I'm like, he's an astronaut. He beat out like probably 10,000 other applicants for this seat on Ares 3. He's very, very good at what he does, and he's psychologically perfect for this situation. Whereas Ryland is not. So he has some problems.
Yeah, no, it's really good. It's really good. People can relate to him, I think, even more than with Mark Watney.
Because we've all felt unqualified, we've all felt overwhelmed, and we've all been scared.
No, it's really good. Okay, so how far does he go in our galaxy? I mean, can you discuss that?
In our galaxy? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, not very far.
Right. Well, so
he quickly, again, this is not a huge spoiler, he quickly comes to realize that he woke up, you know, aboard this ship. He's in the Tau SETI system, which is 12 light years away.
Yeah.
So, I mean, since you phrased the question as how far did he go in our galaxy? Well, our galaxy is 100,000 light years across, and he just went 12 light years away. Yeah. This isn't news to you, Pascal, but one of my favorite, but for the audience, one of my favorite bits of, what is it? One of my favorite bits of trivia is, if you shrunk our entire solar system down to the size of a human white blood cell, right? Then the Milky Way galaxy would be about the size of the United States.
Yeah. Wow.
It's just to give you some indication of how absurdly huge the distances in space are.
Sure. Absurdly huge. Yeah. And he's in the Tau SETI system because can we?
Right. So during in the flashbacks, he comes to remember these events where basically scientists first noticed that, well, they noticed this thing, that they found out that astrophage are migrating from the sun to Venus and back, and they're not sure why. And astrophage store up enormous amounts of energy and actually do mass conversion to store the energy, and then mass conversion to get it back out. They store the energy as neutrinos, and the end result is, due to the mass energy of a neutrino, the photons that are created when you annihilate them end up being in the infrared spectrum. So the astrophage are using light as a propellant, and which you can do. Light has momentum.
Yep.
Again, the things I'm saying, Pascal, I know you already know. This is for the benefit of the viewers.
This is all good. This is all good.
Light has momentum, and we're talking about little itty bitty, 20 picometer across single-celled organisms. They use that as propulsion to get to Venus, where there's carbon dioxide and the larger, heavier elements that they need to be able to do the biological reproduction. Then they go back to the star to gather energy again, and that's their life cycle. And some of them spore out just in all directions in the hope of like seeding to other stars. So all of the nearby stars in our area, not just our sun, but Alpha Centauri, Sirius, Wolf 389, like all these stars are dimming. And astronomers notice that these stars are also getting dimmer. And so it's like not just the sun that has this problem, it's all the stars in our local cluster, except for some reason, not Tau Ceti. Just Tau Ceti. And Tau Ceti is right in the middle of the affected area. There's no reason why it would be immune. It's not too far away, whatever. So they want to know, why isn't Tau Ceti affected by astrophage? And so this is this last ditch, desperate effort, a Hail Mary pass, if you will,
yes,
to send a ship and scientists to Tau Ceti to find out why it's immune to astrophage. Now, you may have noticed that this takes place modern day, and you,
yeah.
Pascal, being something of a space enthusiast, will know we don't remotely have the technology necessary to make an interstellar spacecraft. But it turns out we do if you give us a bunch of astrophage, because astrophage does, is basically the perfect spaceship fuel because it had, I don't know how many billions of years of evolution to work it out.
Yeah. So, and of course, I know why Tau Ceti is immune to this, stellar problem. It's all in there.
Yeah, they do find out.
You do find out. But okay, yeah. What else can we talk about? The design of the spaceship. Okay, this is very different now from the habitat on Mars. It's different from the moon base. How did you come up with this design?
Well, basically Earth is in a huge hurry. They need to get this mission going. They calculate that within about 30 years, the sunlight, they could probably kind of stay alive and keep as many people alive as possible for about 30 years before the solar dimming gets so low that people are going to start dying by the millions. And probably maybe millions are going to die anyway, but they've got to get something done within 30 years. And a round trip to Tau Ceti takes a minimum of 24 years because of the speed of light. And so they had to put this mission together as fast as they possibly could. They had 5 years to build humanity's first interstellar spacecraft using an alien microbe as fuel. And they had to.
It's really ironic because they are the cause of the problem in the first place, but
they're
now
the cause and solution.
Yeah.
Like alcohol, it can be the cause and solution to all your problems. Yeah. So because of this, there's a character that I had a huge amount of fun with named Ava Stratt, and she is in charge of this whole operation. She's in charge of getting the ship built, of getting everything done. And she decides early on, stability and reliability are the only thing that matter. Nothing else matters. Like basically in terms of budget, the entire GDP of Earth for 5 years is going to be funneled into this, right? And then, but they need things to be reliable. You can't just invent a new thing, put it on there and hope that it works. You have no recourse if it doesn't. And they need to have a fully functional laboratory for the people that they're sending to Tau Ceti to be able to study whatever they encounter, so that they can try to find out why astrophage doesn't affect Tau Ceti. So because of that, one of the major decisions they make, the people putting the ship together make, is that they say, like, we don't want to have to invent zero-G versions of all this complex scientific equipment. We don't want to invent from scratch a zero-G scanning electron microscope or a zero-G mass spectrometer or a zero-G 3D printer, although those have
been. Let's give the guys gravity.
Yeah, and they said what we want to use is off-the-shelf products that have millions of human hours of testing in the market and just have gravity on the ship. So that's why the ship actually can break apart into two halves and turn into a centrifuge, so that the laboratory, the whole thing is arranged such that the laboratory part of the ship has as near to 1G of force as possible. Then they can use all this reliable off-the-shelf stuff, which leads to a bunch of funny things. Like, for instance, this spacecraft has like 110-volt power outlets in the lab, because they didn't want to change anything about this equipment, this well-tested equipment. They're like, plug it into the wall. The ship provides a, power, like saying, it just like the mains in the US and Canada.
Yes. Of course, what comes to mind is also the humor that is peppering this whole novel.
I gotta be me.
It's all over the place. I mean, I can think of many stories that I won't tell, but there's a golf ball thing, for example, that I thought was really funny. But you're gonna have to reread your book.
I guess so. Or the part where he's like trying to measure the mass of the.
No, something that comes out that's as big as a golf ball.
Oh yeah. Boy, yeah, that's right at the beginning. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, it's just got fun, laugh out loud moments like this throughout the book. It's very entertaining. Where does that come from, this humor, and how do you sort of work this?
I don't know, a lifetime of trauma. Coping mechanism. I don't know.
Coping mechanism. Do you write your story and then
somebody, when you're talking about the golf ball, someone in chat said chapter 1, page 9, and with no further explanation.
I just brought that up because it was less likely to be a spoiler.
That's true. Fair enough. Yeah. I don't know. I guess the thing for me, first off, I am a smartass in real life, so that's just how I am. But second off, one thing I found is that my particular style of writing is like really, really heavy on the science, obviously.
Yep.
And I really like to be accurate in the science. And this presents me with a problem, because it means I need to exposition a bunch of science. I need to explain all this science to the reader. I try to do it such that I only explain just what they need to know to understand the plot, and try not to go too much further. The problem is it's still a lot of exposition. And the one thing I've learned is that, exposition is, writers don't like writing it. Readers don't like reading it. It's like doing your taxes. It's like something you have to do, but you don't really want to. You'd rather just skip over it. So one thing I found, though, is that readers will forgive you any amount of exposition if you make them laugh. So if they're laughing at the exposition portions, if they're laughing while they're learning these things, then they're fine, no problem. They'll forgive you.
Yeah, I have to really tell everybody that I thought the science was really well explained.
Oh,
I mean, you take some liberties, in terms of creating an extraterrestrial.
Well, there's that.
I'm talking about Astrophage here.
I know.
Okay, and then. Even though I work at the SETI Institute, I won't say more.
Well, SETI would be pretty excited about Astrophage, even though it doesn't have the eye, it's not intelligent, but I think the folks at SETI would probably be pretty excited about any alien life, any alien microbe. They'd probably be like,
yes,
it would probably come up over the water cooler,
We wouldn't make it to the water cooler.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say the science is very well exposed, very well written, and it's correctly. And what I like is his process, his thought process, which is of course your thought process. He asks right questions. He has hypotheses, which he then goes about testing. So it's not just the science facts that are dumped at you. There's a scientific process that is really well captured throughout.
Thank you. Well, and also, again, not a big spoiler, he does remember also that his career trajectory wasn't straight to junior high school teacher. He is actually a doctor, a PhD of a
disgruntled doctor,
a disgruntled PhD in molecular biology with a specialist in speculative xenobiology. So kind of like a certain guy I'm talking to right now, a little bit. I mean, you specialized in asteroids, but still, you're all about the
I won't
aliens,
tell
right?
my asteroid joke. Not
Yeah,
now.
you gotta tell your asteroid joke. Asteroids can hurt if they're big enough.
Okay.
But anyway, um, um, yeah, and he was in academia for a long time,
Right.
and he wrote some papers where he challenged some core assumptions about what alien life would be like. And he got like the academic community like did not like it. They, you know, and he got so mad about all that, he just left the entire industry
Yeah.
and went into teaching. And it turned out that was kind of his true calling. He really enjoyed being a teacher, and he found his happiness that way. But it does mean that I get to have him be like really, really educated on this stuff. And he's very well versed in the scientific method and how to do these things.
You know, this reminds me of this little note that I have from Freeman Dyson, who died just a couple years ago. And he wrote down for me one time, peer review is the death of originality.
Well, yeah.
And I thought, anyway, this sort of goes along the lines of, this is something that Ryland would relate to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you know, there's plenty more for me to ask you, but I want to make time here for some Q&A with you and folks who are your fans out there. So why don't we?
We're gonna have the voice of God is gonna read the questions. Is that right?
Elena, please.
Don't ever call me the voice of God. That's unacceptable. That's not okay.
He's like Fraulein Strat.
Fraulein Strat.
That was amazing. I did not think I'd hear anything about a golf ball size thing coming out as urine. So there we go.
I'll leave it at that. That was my first outburst of laughter.
We do
Page
have
9, good.
many questions.
Alrighty.
Fire away. Unexpected. Judy Sanders wants to know, the book left me wanting more. Is there any chance we'll see more about Grace and Rocky or other questions that have been raised?
Yeah, I mean, unlike The Martian, which is completely unsequelable, this one actually, I mean, I didn't do it on purpose, but this one lends itself to a sequel pretty well, I think. And I have some ideas. And so, yeah, I would like to write more in this setting and with these characters. I can't guarantee it's going to happen. I also wanted to write a bunch of sequels to Artemis, but I haven't come up with an idea that's good enough yet.
Yet. That's the word. Yet. Okay. I think people would be excited for that. Next question is from Lindsay Ayala. Would you rather be stuck in a Mark Watney or Ryland Grace type situation yourself? Also, greetings from Puerto Rico.
Hola, Puerto Rico. I think Ryland Grace ultimately, without giving too much away, has a much cooler experience.
Yeah, me too.
Like he has a much more awesome experience than Mark does.
I mean, Mark ultimately just comes back alive, which is what he had planned to do in the first place. Ryland didn't plan most of this.
Yeah, and Ryland also he gets to do really interesting things. Yeah. Also, just a side note, I mean, I understood right from the beginning, oh, look, here I am doing another story about an isolated scientist. So I actually went out of my way not to repeat any beats from The Martian. Like, for instance, the stuff on Ryland's ship pretty much always works as designed. Like, things don't break down. There are some issues that happen as a result of events during the plot, but there's no design issues. There's no so I tried to have different problems.
Yeah.
That's good. Next question is from Anonymous. How did life evolve on Iridian without plants to do photosynthesis?
Not to give away too many spoilers, but yes, we know that Astrophage is extraterrestrial, and I won't talk about what Arid or Iridian is, but I will say that light does not reach the surface of that planet. The atmosphere of that planet is so thick that it's similar to an ocean. So there are plant-like life forms, like small plant-like life forms in the upper atmosphere that do photosynthesis, and then the life below that level eats that, and then the life below that eats that. So think of it like the ocean. Just as we have life at the bottom of our ocean where absolutely no light can get to, so too can this planet have life further down than the sunlight can get.
It works. It works.
And that's explained in the book, Anonymous, if you'd bothered to pitch. No, sorry. I don't want to get anonymous, man. These people control 4chan. This is
good question, Anonymous.
This is like they do not forget, they do not forgive.
I don't think you need to worry about that for your fans.
I don't want 4chan on my ass, okay? I don't want any trouble.
I think you're okay with that, Green. I don't think they read your books. So
I hope they do.
Maybe they do. Maybe they'll learn something.
Yeah, they're surprisingly educated. There was one time, I'm sorry for the aside, but there was one time when the good people of 4chan like tracked down a pedophile and got him caught, like because some guy posted some pedophile image, and they got in there, read the EXIF data, found out the serial number of the phone that he used to take the picture, and then they found like some other motorcycle enthusiast forum where he'd also posted a picture, and they found that, and then they found his like username from that and tracked it down, and they were able to find out who he was. He was some guy in Warsaw, Poland, and then they took all their information and turned it over to the Warsaw police, and they nailed his ass. So 4chan can be a force of good.
I'm okay
anyway,
with that.
Go on.
This one is from another Elena, not me. I did not type this and pretend it's not me. It's another Elena who spells her name the same way.
Okay.
How do you write such amazingly strong characters so well? For example, if the character is stronger than him, how does he make the character like a real person?
Well, thank you. I like the idea that you think I write good characters, because to me, I consider that my biggest flaw and weakness as a writer. Well, it's easy to make a character that is better than you at something, because you have as long as you want to work out what they're going to do. So if somebody's like, really, really smart, then in the book, maybe it only takes them a couple of minutes to work something out, but maybe it took me a week. And then, or if they're really, really brave, okay, they can go do that brave thing. I'm not the one who's going to die. I'm just the writer. I'm fine. So,
Andy, actually, this brings up a question I wanted to insert here about your writing process. Do you actually have the whole story figured out and storyboarded before you write it, or are there places where you actually modify things substantially as you are writing it?
Usually I have the main turning points of the story in mind. It's not like an outline. I say, I'll have like 4 or 5 things. It's like, okay, the story starts here, this big thing happens, then that big thing happens, and that big thing happens, and here's how it ends. Like literally that level. And so I'm kind of making it up as I go along, as I get from thing to thing. And sometimes I'll be like, oh, this big thing that happens, I came up with a better big thing to happen instead. So I don't hold myself to that structure I initially came up with.
Okay.
You're jumping the line, Pascal. Got all these people asking Q&A, and now you're using your authority.
I'm too excited.
As
Go ahead, Elena. Another question.
All right, Elena. We'll call you Elena 2, because there's that other one, right? So, okay, Elena B.
She's more nicer than Fraulein Strat.
I don't take that.
Fraulein Strat, voice of God.
I imagine Fraulein Strat as a James Bond,
like Frau Blücher or whatever.
Frau Blücher, yeah. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Next question is from Michelle. Are either of you planning on being space tourists when flights are available to the public?
So my answer is very quick. No. I'm an earthbound misfit. I have no intention of ever leaving this planet. I write about brave people. I'm not one of them. Meanwhile, Pascal, I think, would kill someone for that opportunity. So I'll let him answer for himself.
Here you have a situation where somebody who could afford it doesn't want to go, and somebody who wants to go in and cannot afford it.
Can't afford it. I don't have like $20 million or whatever.
No, I just paint space travel. That's how I get through the urge.
Did you paint those things in the background?
Yeah. These are just
some
of mine.
God, those are beautiful.
Not about me.
Yes. Well, let's take a moment. Those are really beautiful.
Thanks.
I thought they were just professional art that you bought and thought looked nice. I didn't know you painted that. That's amazing.
I thought the same thing.
Oh, let me show you this. This is my little, standard Mars globe, but I have Andy.
My signature. Yep.
Signed,
and I pointed out where Ares 3 is.
Location of the Ares 3 Mark Watney's
lander.
Predicament is happening.
Yes. And in fact, just down and to the left from there, you can see it's labeled on the globe where Pathfinder is.
Yes. Down there. Well, Pathfinder is in
Chrissy Planitia.
That's right, in Chrissy Planitia.
It's southwest.
Right, there you go.
A lot of south and a little bit of west from Ares 3.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right here somewhere.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, yeah, and then it's also signed by Mary Roach, but that's a different story.
That's Mary Roach's signature?
That's amazing. Signature.
I think I'm going to start signing things on her behalf because I think I can do that.
Mars. So I'm getting Mars people to sign this globe.
Yeah, Mary Roach is awesome.
All right. Sorry. Next question, Elaine.
No, don't apologize. That's amazing. You have Andy Weir and Mary Roach's signature on a globe of space. I don't think anyone
Mars,
else
actually. It's a globe of Mars.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I don't think anyone else can claim that. So show that off proudly anytime you can. I think that's great. This is a random question from Aaron. What is the blue box in the back of Andy's room?
How dare you not
know
that?
To the outside.
How dare you not know? Oh, you mean that? Oh, that. Okay. Because that blue box is the TARDIS, and no nerd should exist on this planet without knowing what a TARDIS is. All right. That's from Doctor Who. That blue box, that's fair to ask about. That's a laser cutter. So it can cut wood. It can cut wood up to about 1/4 of an inch thick, and really, really precisely down to like the half a micron level of precision. It's really nice.
Can I ask, what are you using that for? What are you making?
Yeah, I like to do clockwork projects. Oh, I got to disappoint a dog.
It's a laser that cuts. This is why I don't go to Andy's place anymore, because I don't want to hear, but I expect you to die.
No, Dr. Lee, I expect you to die. No, this is like, I make stuff like this. I like to make clockwork type things, and
Wow, beautiful.
This does have a purpose, but
I'm expecting like a Rube Goldberg kind of.
Well, actually, I mean, I try to be not a Rube Goldberg when I'm trying to make something. I try to do it, as directly as possible. This project that I'm working on now is just like a silly idea I had that blossomed into a bunch of really interesting engineering challenges. And so, I mean, that's what I'm working on at the moment.
That's pretty awesome.
I bought that laser cutter, I don't know, like 6 or 7 years ago, and it's rare for me to go a week without using it. That thing has been the best toy ever.
Wow. I think I would get carried away with that too.
A lot of fun.
Next question is from Ken. Other than some small character similarities with Dr. Grace, did Mark Wanted have any additional influences on the book?
Did
Mark Watney?
Okay.
Watney, yeah,
did Mark Watney have any? I mean, no. I was trying to think about this story. So no. I mean, the main
it's
influence.
Very different. It's very different. Folks,
the main influence that The Martian had on Project Hail Mary was I worked really hard not to repeat story beats that are already in The Martian.
I mean, Ryland Grace and Mark Watney would probably get along, but they have different personalities, really.
I think Ryland would not like the swearing, though.
Right, he's a school teacher, so he's
Ryland never swears, pretty much. And so I think every time Mark swore, which is like every sentence or two, Ryland would be like, language. But other than that, they'd probably get along pretty well.
Okay, next question is from Wilson.
Wilson,
what came first, the idea for the astrophage or the need for a plot device that necessitates Ryland saving all life on Earth and thus upping ante from the Martian?
Astrophage came first. The The idea, the core, well, Project Hail Mary, although it looks like a smooth plot, is actually a collection of unrelated ideas from the junkyard of my mind. And they're all glued together in such a way that they make a nice cohesive story. But Astrophage was an idea that I've had for a while. Just basically, the core of the story is like, hey, wouldn't it be awesome if we had a mass conversion spacecraft fuel? And the most efficient, the theoretical maximum most efficient spacecraft fuel, and kind of like thinking about from there. Then came things like, well, how would we do that? We can't make that technology right now, and I don't want to make something that takes place like thousands of years in the future. I'm like, well, maybe we find it. And okay, well then it's like alien technology, where the aliens who use it. And I'm like, well, maybe it's a natural life form, and that's kind of where I went from there.
Astrophage has no predators, right? I mean, it's its own food chain.
Well, when it's out in our star, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, it doesn't eat itself; it just
I mean,
breeds out of
you know,
control.
that's an example of something that doesn't fit the mold of, you know, a typical of our vision of an ecology on Earth. But that's again because we only know of one example of life.
Yeah.
But it's perfectly acceptable as a.
Well, you haven't finished the book yet, so I don't want to talk too deep into spoilers here.
All right, never mind. Never mind.
I mean, Astrophage comes from a biosphere that has, you know, more like, it's not a mono species biosphere.
Yeah. If I haven't said it already, this book really takes you on a voyage, on a journey. I want to be on board that ship. I want to be part of that journey.
I mean, it's a suicide mission,
I thought was
so
exciting,
are you sure?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Because
Yeah.
there are some things that are worth dying for.
Oh, wow. Yeah, saving all of humanity, I guess.
It's saving all of humanity, and then running into interesting stuff is sort of
saving all of humanity and really having a lot of interesting things happen along the way. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, Elena B. Next question.
More questions?
Okay, next question is from Brenda. How likely is it that a xenobiologist would be able to do so much science-y engineering stuff? And that's a quote.
Science-y engineering stuff. Well, I mean, he most of the straight up engineering, he has other ways of dealing with those challenges. But so he mostly focuses on the science questions. And there are other things aboard his ship that can deal with the engineering challenges.
Another science-y question. Thoughts on writing about the period of time on Earth while still waiting for the info from Hail Mary about the socio-political landscape at the time?
Right. So the main problem is that they very quickly realize that, like, as the food chain collapses, things are going to get rough on Earth. And like, there's a scene where Strat, who we surprisingly haven't talked about very much, she's a very important character in the book. But anyway, she's describing at one point saying, hey, when the food starts to run out, you think everybody's going to cooperate about that? Like, for instance, China, with their huge population and very strong military, you think they're just going to sit back and let their people starve while they have a bunch of poorly defended, you know, farmland in the countries adjacent to them? You think the United States is going to do the same thing? They've got a pretty good military too. you know,
I think she actually came up in a dream. She really freaks me out. This
hey, she had a job to do. She's not a bad person. She's just time for any fluffy.
She has ultimate authority, though. She's really
she does. Strat is like the right person for the job, and I loved writing her as a character, but I don't think I'd enjoy hanging out with her.
Yeah.
Okay. But the short answer is, I don't want to write like a socio-political thriller. I'm not that kind of writer. I like science mysteries and science-driven plot lines and things like this. This is more like in the John Grisham / Tom Clancy mold of stuff, and that's not my area of expertise. Also, if I wrote a sequel to Project Hail Mary, there's a certain character that's in PHM that people really are responding very, very positively to. And if that character weren't in a sequel, I'd be like hunted down and lynched. So if I wrote something that just took place concurrently with the events of this book, it wouldn't be able to have that character in it, and people would be very upset.
So
it'd be like writing a Game of Thrones book with no Tyrion, which I think you did actually. What?
Can you share? Can we have a scoop here? Like, what's your next book? I know we're all focused on this one, but
I have ideas for my next book, but I'm not talking about anything publicly because I don't. I've had times where I got really far into a book writing it before I realized it sucked and then junked it. And so I don't want to tell people what my next book is until I'm really sure that I'm going to finish it and that's going to be my next book. And I'm not there yet.
Okay, good to know. All right, Elena, more Q&A?
Elena too.
Yes, Elena too. This one's from Aram. How does your inspiration for books come up? Is it a long process or an instant ignition of an idea?
Generally, I mean, I guess I'd say it's a long process because it generally starts with some sort of sciencey speculation and then grows from there. And in the case of Project Hail Mary, there were a bunch of little sciencey speculations, each one of which was not really enough to be a book or carry a story. But then, and they just kind of hung out there in the back of my mind. But then I was like, oh, I could glue this to that and this to that and this to that. And this starts to make a pretty interesting cohesive narrative. And like I said, it all seems really smooth and seamless, but there's a lot of spackle in those seams. But hey, you don't have to worry about how the sausage gets made.
But I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right, Elena.
Okay, I think we have time for 3 more questions. Let's do power round.
Power round.
Was Dr. Strauss's character inspired by someone specific because I love her?
Strat, I guess, is who we're talking about.
Right,
she's not based on any real world person. She's one of those elements that I had floating off by itself as an idea. I wanted a character where Earth is facing an existential crisis, and this character is given unbelievable amounts of authority to solve the problem, and she doesn't misuse it. She really does.
Globally.
Like Strat is probably, at least during the time that they're building the ship, she's probably the most powerful human being in human history. Like, and she was the right person for the job. And I had a lot of fun writing her because she has absolutely zero tolerance for any BS at all. And she will just cut through everything. She's like, that's why they did it, is so that they're like, no, we're not going to have a multinational committee have 6 weeks of meetings to decide what color the flight manual front page is going to be. We're just like, Strat's going to be like, none of that. Do this,
And nothing will unite humanity like the death of the sun.
Yeah. Yes.
That should be the name of an album, I think. Okay, next question is from Peter. In some hypothetical crossover story, would Mark, Ryland, Grace, and Jazz get along?
Well, I think I think they would. Well, I think Mark and Ryland are both, scientists and stuff like that, and Jazz would probably feel a little out of place. I think Jazz and Mark would get along just fine in terms of like swearing a lot. And poor Ryland would be like, guys, can just
I mean, swearing is a great way to bond with people.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I get that. Okay, let's make this our last question. This is from Daniel. How long did you ruminate on and devise the sun-sucking extremophile? Did you conceive of any other extremophile concepts that you couldn't make work or were recommended to you?
No, I didn't come up with other concepts that I abandoned, although I did come up with like different ideas for how Astrophage worked. I knew what I wanted. I'm like, here's how it works. It does this, it breeds, it does that, it uses light as propulsion. And then I put a lot of thought into the mechanism of like, how does it store all that energy? And I actually spent a lot of time trying to think of, is there any way it could just store the energy as light? Like maybe it has like some sort of perfect reflectivity or something like that inside, and it could just literally store the light, just let it bounce around until it needed it. And then another idea I had was maybe it makes positronium, which is basically if you take an electron and a positron is an antimatter electron. A positron has a positive charge, an electron has a negative charge, and it is possible to get a positron and an electron going around each other like this, like kind of orbiting each other, and that's called positronium. Now the problem is positronium has like a half-life of like, microseconds, if that. And so I'm like, but maybe that'd be my physics hand wave, that maybe it has a mechanism of creating positronium that will last. And that was another thing I thought. And then it can just like allow it to collapse and then send the photons out the back. So I thought of a lot of different ways, but ultimately I came up with neutrinogenesis, which is where it takes kinetic energy of protons colliding with each other, and that kinetic energy becomes two neutrons going opposite directions. So the energy and the momentum are conserved. And that's also cool. I said neutrons, I meant neutrinos. And that's also cool because neutrinos have so much less mass energy that the light that gets created would be in the infrared range. If you did annihilation of electrons, I think you'd probably get gamma rays or something. And that's, I don't know, it's not as cool because it's not like visible to tell, it's not as easily visible to astronomers on Earth and stuff like that. I think we can all agree that the infrared band is cooler than the gamma band, right, everyone? I think so.
Sure. Depending on what you want to do, but yes. But yes,
whatever
yes.
makes you happy, right?
Yeah.
You actually sent me to, I had to look up a few things there. When I mean, not that it wasn't well explained, it's just that these are things that I wasn't really familiar with. And
well, the hand wavy,
it was a very enriching read. Really,
oh, thank
really
you.
good. Yeah, yeah.
The hand waviness, I mean, there's always going to be some hand wavy BS in a science fiction story, or usually. And in this case, I'm proud to say you have to dig down to the quantum level to find it. Basically, astrophage cell membranes can contain neutrinos. That's probably not possible. But there you go. There's the hand wave.
Uh-huh. That's okay. It doesn't affect the plot in a significant way.
I know. It's like, oh my God, super cross-sectionality is not possible. This book is invalid.
Well, I mean, I can't get to all of the questions, and many of the comments are asking if at some point the two of you could be in conversation again. Spoilers galore, because they want to hear the science.
I see.
They want to
hear. Well, maybe if Pascal
later.
finishes the book.
Yeah, we would host you again.
It's a page turner. It's just that this is the end of the month, and I had other things that we'll do, but I'm not letting go of this. And I actually take the dust jacket off to read it because I don't want to, I want to keep it nice.
Well, if you want to come back to do a round 2 after you're done,
spoilerific,
have a full spoilerific event, we will host you again and have everyone back.
We managed to, we'll bring dogs. Yeah, we managed to have this whole conversation. I'll tell you, like, basically, for those who haven't read it, there's a whole bunch of important plot stuff that we didn't even talk about because we didn't want to spoil it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would be happy to host you again, or you could just do whatever you want to do. We would have it on our Zoom.
Yeah.
That was so much fun to listen to you both. If there's any other final thoughts you both want to give.
It's truly a super exciting story. Okay. And by the way, I'm not paid for any of this. Okay. So this is just me speaking my mind. It's Andy's superb writing skills and storytelling skills that are going interstellar, and that's got to be exciting right there.
Yeah, thank you.
So that's it. I'm loving it.
Thanks.
Thank you both so much. That was so much fun. Everyone, again, this was recorded, so it will be on our YouTube channel shortly. And if you haven't already ordered your copy of Project Hail Mary, do so right now. Go to the BookSync website. The link is in the chat. It's just also on our front page of the website. Just get it now. He will be signing copies. So if you want a signed copy and you want it made out to someone, he will happily do so. We're going to order in some other copies of The Martian and Artemis as well, because we did see a lot of feedback for that. So Andy, get ready to come back a second time because we got a lot of.
I'm sorry, my dog died.
No.
It's so sweet. I'm glad you had him there.
We check for a pulse. Coco.
No, that was so much fun, and thank you both so much for taking the time to do this.
Thank
We
you,
will
Linda.
welcome you
Thank
back
you.
anytime.
All right, everybody. Bye-bye.
Look after your dog, and everyone have a good night.
Bye, Elena. Bye, Andy. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Pascal. Good to see you again.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, bye, everybody.